everybody. Myself, Dr. Nalluru Tarita, pursuing my first year post graduation in the Department of Periodontics from Sri Hasnama Dental College, Hassan. So, today we'll be talking about halitosis. Oral odor or the smell. The normal smell we get is the subjective perception of somebody else's breath. It can be pleasant, unpleasant, or even disgusting sometimes. The unpleasant odor is known as halitosis, fetid odor, or the oral malodor. It is very common in general population. It is almost seen in 1 in every 4%. And it the halitosis leads to personal discomfort and social embarrassment. Coming to the categories of oral halitosis, they are categorized. So, the first one is genuine halitosis. As the name suggests, the breath malodor really exists and it can be measured organoleptically or by measuring the responsible compounds. And we again have two in genuine halitosis. They are physical and pathological. Physical are the transient malodors which occur while having food like onions, garlic, etc., or while smoking, or even while taking medications. It also can be during the mornings where we have the bad breath, which subsides after the oral hygiene procedures or even after having breakfast. So, the continuous or the transient malodor is pathological. It shows that there is some pathology. And coming to the second type, it is a pseudohalitosis. When the halitosis is not present, but the subject is convinced that he or she suffers from it, it is known as pseudohalitosis. And when the subject is still convinced that he or she is still having the oral malodor, even after the treatment of genuine halitosis or even after diagnosing pseudohalitosis, it is known as halitophobia. This is the third type. Now coming to the etiology and epidemiology. Halitosis have both intraoral causes and extraoral causes. Intraoral causes being 90% and extraoral causes just being 4% for the reason. And the main intraoral causes are the tongue coating, which account 50% of the cases, and periodontal diseases, which account 13% of the cases, and a combination of both tongue coating and periodontal diseases of 22%. And now we shall discuss about the intraoral causes. How does intraoral causes cause halitosis? The proteins or peptides which are in the saliva or which are in the GCF or which are in the food debris gets hydrolyzed into sulfur-containing or non-sulfur-containing amino acids. The sulfur-containing amino acids break down by proteolytic degradation by gram-negative or anaerobic bacteria into the metallic compounds like hydrogen sulfide, methyl mercaptan, and dimethyl sulfide. These three gases are known as the volatile sulfur compounds. These are the reason for discussing about the intraoral causes. First one is the tongue coating. Tongue coating is the main etiologic factor of halitosis. It is because the irregularities or the surface topography and the deep fissures or grooves on the tongue which act as ideal niches for bacterial adhesion and growth. Now, the food remnants get intermingled with the shedded cells or the bacteria to form the tongue coating. Tongue coating is mostly seen on the posterior part of the. Why do tongue coatings form? It may be because of the suboptimal cleaning or oral hygiene, because when people do not clean their tongue with the brush or tongue cleaners, or it may be due to the poor periodontal statuses, or even with the patients bearing the prosthesis, because it is difficult for them to clean the tongue. And it also can be seen in patients drinking and smoking. And now the second cause is the periodontal infections. The periodontal infections, as we know, have deeper pockets. So deep the pockets, the more the number of bacteria. So more the number of bacteria, more the volatile sulfur compounds are produced. So how volatile sulfur compounds aggravate the periodontitis? They aggravate the periodontitis by increasing the permeability of the epithelium and exposing the connective tissues. And they expose the connective tissues and they break them down. The volatile sulfur compounds, or to be precisely the hydrogen sulfide with collagen, can alter protein structures, rendering the PDL and the bone. And the other factors which include periodontal infections are pericoronitis, recurrent oral abscesses or ulcers, or the herpes gingivitis, or even the necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis or necrotizing ulcerative periodontitis. Now coming to the third cause, it can be due to dental disorders like caries or the patient's wearing dentures, which can be due to the fungi or the bacteria like candidiasis, or it can be even due to the extraction clots. And fourth cause can be due to the dry mouth or the xerostomia. So, due to the reduced salivary flow and the increased putrefaction of bacteria, this can cause halitosis. Now, coming to the extraoral causes. Extraoral causes can be due to hormonal changes, ENT disorders, or systemic diseases like diabetic mellitus or the pulmonary or gastrointestinal disorders or even the renal insufficiencies. The extraoral causes can be blood-borne and the non-blood-borne. Blood-borne are usually transferred to the blood, like for example from the liver or gut to the lungs, and non-blood-borne and for the non-blood-borne the examples are the throat or nasal infections. So, the extraoral causes have a peculiar smell for some of the diseases. Like, for example, the sweety odor of ketones in diabetic mellitus, the sulfur kind of smell in the liver diseases, and the fishy odor in the kidney disorders. Now, coming to the diagnosis of halitosis. Coming for the pre-consultation approach, like before approaching the judge or the clinician, the patient should follow few rules, like not to eat garlic, onion, or spices 2 days prior, and the patients are told to refrain from alcohol, coffee, and from smoking 12 hours prior. And they are also told not to chew any gums, mouth rinses, or sprays. And they are also told not to put any fragrant shampoos, body lotions, or perfumes on the day of examination. And for the diagnosis, patients are told to come early in the mornings without having the breakfast. And the next procedure is anamnesis. It is done by thorough questioning. The patients are asked about their eating habits, the frequency of the halitosis, like how it is it for an hour or is it continuous, and they're asked about the medical and personal histories, and they're asked about the oral hygiene practices, and they are asked about if they are having any prosthesis or not. And the third thing is the organoleptic rating. It is done by a judge. Patients are told to count 1 to 10, and the judge who sniffs the expired air smells the breath of the patient by 10 centimeters, and they give the rating from 0 to 5 in an increasing order, where 5 is the severe halitosis. So they can also diagnose the nasal malodor from oral malodor. When there is nasal malodor and when there is no oral malodor, it signifies that there is some ENT problems. And the organoleptic rating has the highest degree of subjectivity because the ratings and readings all depends upon the judge. And coming to the next procedure, it is by the halometer. Halometer is the instrument which is used to measure the sulfur compounds. The only disadvantage of halometer is it can only read the sulfur compounds, and the advantage of halometer is the patient is less embarrassed and the halitophobia can be more convincingly pleased by showing the readings. How the procedure is done. The patient is told to close his mouth for 3 minutes, and the straw-like thing is kept in the mouth, which is connected to the tube of the instrument, and the readings are given out in parts per billion. The optimum readings are like 75 to 140 ppb. If it crosses more than 140, the patient is known to have halitosis. The next procedure is the gas chromatography. The patient is told to keep his mouth closed for 30 seconds, and the gas is expirated by the syringe which is put on the gas chromatograph. Gas chromatograph can also help in diagnosis. If methyl mercaptan is more than hydrogen sulfide, it shows that the patient has periodontal status. And if he has more of hydrogen sulfide, it is not that his oral hygiene is suboptimal. And if has more of dimethyl sulfide, it is known that the cause is by the extraoral cause. And the other methods to diagnose can be dark field of phase contrast microscopy or even the oropharyngeal examination. And coming to the treatment of the halitosis. First one is the mechanical reduction of the intraoral nutrients and microorganisms by tongue cleaning. Tongue cleaning alone can reduce halitosis levels by 75% after a week, and the patients with periodontitis can be treated with full mouth disinfection by scaling and root planing with chlorhexidine. The patients are also advised to chew gums to increase the salivary flow. And the second one is the chemical reduction of oral microbial load. They can be given mouth rinses which can contain chlorhexidine, cetylpyridinium, essential oils, chlorine dioxide, triclosan, stannous fluoride, hydrogen peroxide, and baking soda. The third one is the conversion of volatile sulfur compounds by metal salt solutions. The examples for metal salt solutions include zinc chloride, stannous chloride, copper chloride, or the mercury chloride. And the last one is to mask the oral malodors by chewing gums or mint containing lozenges. So this finishes my class of few points on halitosis. I thank the Save the Tooth campaign for giving me this opportunity, and I really appreciate of what you are doing to educate the general people. Thank you so much.